Hey folks, Jay Walker here, just jumping in ahead of this week's episode to let you in on a little shiphead insider knowledge. So believe it or not, this December marks the 5th Venture 15 and Venture Asheville Honors Awards. Every year, the event gets bigger, the rankings get more competitive, and the quality of applications just increases. So if you're new to Asheville or the startup scene, know that this is the celebration of the year for startups. We publish and rank the 15 fastest growing startups in the region. We honor mentors, investors, founders, and more. We also award the best startup to work for. This year's show is December 15th at the Orange Peel. Tickets are $30, but you can get $5 off with the code TALKSHIP. All lowercase, one word, TALKSHIP. That's $5 off using the code TALKSHIP.
Greetings, shipheads, and welcome to Talkin' Ship, the Venture Asheville podcast where we talk about issues and topics in entrepreneurship. We are the Venture Asheville team. Venture Asheville is the high-growth entrepreneurship initiative of the Economic Development Coalition for Asheville-Buncombe County. We build entrepreneurs and get startups funded. I'm Jeffrey Kaplan, this ship's captain, director of Venture Asheville, lover of pickleball. Today we're talking about pickleball, because last week we lost one of our employees. We know where she is. She just went to a new company, and her goodbye party was over playing pickleball. And then today in the office, we had an entrepreneur new to town come in who makes pickleball paddles. Pickleball, it's really growing. It's the fastest growing sport in America. But check out Single Double. The founder is Jennifer Cronier, and she's building her company right here in Asheville for pickleball paddles, gear, balls themselves. Fascinating. It's pretty exciting to talk to a hungry entrepreneur in a growing market. Very exciting. Jay Walker, what's good with you? Have you ever played pickleball?
I've never played pickleball. I've had the opportunity. I've heard all about it. My small town in North Carolina was looking at creating some pickleball courts. And
Shout out to Spruce Pine.
Shout out to Spruce Pine. But I hear all
of silica and feldspar.
Yes, silica and feldspar. Very good.
Quite a bit.
You've done your research.
Quite a bit. I'm sorry, I just jumped right in. With me, as always, is the wonderful, smart, talented, considerate, and creative Juliana Moon Walker, our master of interactive media.
Oh, they know me by now, right?
I would hope so.
Right.
We've been on the podcast a long time. Our longest standing producer.
Yeah. 3 seasons now.
Three wonderful seasons.
Booty.
Did you know that I think it's something like 90% of podcasts don't make it past the 3rd episode?
Well, we are kicking butt.
And of that 10% that make it past 3, 90% don't make it past 20 episodes.
Well, we're on. I think we've had at least 20 episodes now, so we're
way
solid.
Beyond. So I think we're in the top. What is that? 10% of the 1% of all podcasts.
The top 1% of the.
We are 1%ers. That's really, really.
I'm proud of us.
So that's what we've been
1%ers in a different way.
That's right. Today we get to speak to an Ash famous economic developer. Let me share some of his greatest hits. New Belgium Brewing. With me today is Clark Duncan. I know there's more, Clark. I want to say it like you talk about all your greatest hits.
I see where your priorities lie, Jeff.
So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I work for you, and some say I am your best employee. Not everyone says that, but some say that, because I meet a lot of people in the community, and they think Venture Asheville is this island of activity, these radicals, these weirdos, entrepreneurs. And the fact is, we're part of a really sophisticated economic development strategy that's been in the works for well over 20 years. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but it's a real treat for us today to have you on the podcast, Clark. And we thought it would be fun to kind of dispel some myths versus facts about economic development. I think because people don't know we are part of the Economic Development Coalition, one of the 5 key strategies, I hear all kinds of stuff in the public and in personal conversation or cruising Reddit that I thought it'd be fun to say real things that people have said to me, to you, and let you respond as the voice of economic development for Asheville-Buncombe and Haywood County, and really as the urban core of a very rural region. You are kind of the gateway to so much economic development regionally. Before I do that, do you want to like say hi, how long you've been here, how you got into this role, and then I'll hit you with some of those real, I swear to God, these are all real quotes I've heard.
Can I just say how long I've waited for an invitation to join you on this podcast?
3 seasons.
And I'm thrilled to be here. Jeff, this is my 15th year on this team. You were my first hire as executive director. I'm proud of that day.
Me too.
Yeah, and incredibly proud of the team that we built here that is focused on purpose and impact and making Buncombe County a great place to be.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed about me. This is the longest work relationship I've ever had.
I feel it. It's special.
As we read as a team, and Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage, teams that work together longer get to know each other better and are more productive and profitable for that reason. As long as there's no like toxic, aberrant personalities, which we don't have in here. Jay Walker on her days, but overall, we're pretty good.
I'm so toxic.
Anyway, I so enjoy working here because the team you've helped put together are really orchestrated. So anyway, we can gush on each other later at the second half of this podcast.
That's why I'm here.
that's why I accepted the invite.
Yeah,
you heard the questions, you're like, yeesh, I don't know. How about the second half? Well, you got to eat your veggies before you get your dessert. So let's jump in. Okay, a real thing someone said to me. How much did the city pay hotel companies to come here?
Interesting. So yeah, lots of misunderstanding around the growth in the hotel industry. The hotels are not recruited. Hoteliers are entrepreneurs, and they go where there is demand to meet that demand. And that's one of the reasons we continue to attract really interesting, unique, and boutique hoteliers. Is there's a lot of demand to experience our community and the outdoor adventure of Western North Carolina. But yeah. The bottom line, there are no recruitment dollars. There are no tax incentives that are strategically bringing those employers to the community.
So that dovetails into the next question, and the next thing someone said to me. Are you incentivized to recruit hotels here so you can increase your budget?
I wish it worked that way. Interesting fact. So we are proudly a part of the chamber, but our funding is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Proud to say the Buncombe County Commission and the Asheville City Council support us by annual contract. That's about 1/3 of our funding. Thank you to the chairman and the mayor. About 1/3 of that we raised through our capital campaign, where we have a 501c3 foundation, and we go out and it's called Tin Cup Economic Development. We raise funds to grow the economy of the region. And then the last third, as Jeff knows very well, is staff earned income. So with every ticket we sell to the Venture 15, you are advancing the mission of economic development. Those dollars are returned back to our programming and our bottom line.
Can we, I don't like this phrase, but I don't know what to say. Can we double click on that for a moment? What actually is the Economic Development Coalition? You alluded to some of the partners and the way the budget works. What is why an Economic Development Coalition?
And why is our name so long? So we are the
EDC of ABC. That's
the Economic Development Coalition for Asheville and Buncombe County. And by the time that comes out of my mouth at a podium, people are laughing, right?
Every time.
We are we are a public-private partnership of the Asheville Chamber, Buncombe County, and the city of Asheville, focused on growing economic opportunity, economic diversification, essentially raising wages and standards of living for residents of Buncombe County. That is our mission. And we accomplish that through a number of key strategies that focus on targeted industry growth. And you represent one of those, Jeff.
Okay, we're going to come back to some of that strategy at the end here.
Great.
What I want to say next. Okay, someone said, I hear this one a lot.
I'm sitting down.
Different variations of tourism drives our economy. We're a tourism-based economy. We are a resort, hospitality, hotel town. So if you could respond to that concept, tourism driving the economy.
Yeah, listen, I think tourism's incredibly important to the economy of Buncombe County and Western North Carolina. But I think it surprises visitors as much as it surprises longtime residents to know that only 16% of our workforce is engaged in the tourism and hospitality industry. It's not dominant. What is dominant that I think we all benefit from is this reputation of a place where you can bring your whole self, right? That Western North Carolina is a place of discovery and adventure. And I think that attracts creatives and really high performing people. And I think that those coattails of tourism, the brand aspect of living in the communities is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think that's one of these issues, or I don't know, phenomenon of optics driving public opinion, not data. Because tourism is by far, right, the most visible industry, because like who's just hanging out around GE Aviation, right? Like it's not in a spot where it's visible on your daily commute or something.
Yeah, Borg Warner's not building turbos in downtown Asheville, right?
Exactly.
So and in the mountains, they're hidden. You don't really see the renaissance of American manufacturing that's happening in Buncombe County because it's hidden in the hollers of the county. You like how we said hollers?
I do. That's not a word I was used to growing up in the swamps of Florida. But I like it. I'm into it. So, next week, exactly 2 weeks from now, I'll be speaking at the NCIDA Ecosystem Summit. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is the differences statewide or even nationwide about like site selection. And the phrase I've heard a few times in prep calls for the conference is site selection, economic development is a race to the bottom, where everyone, that's the quote, it's a race to the bottom. And to expand on that, I think what people mean is, you have, again, optics driven municipalities throwing incentives at companies to come and drop a factory in their community for the long-term jobs and development and CapEx and whatever, tax-based growth. So can you respond to that main idea? It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah. No, after 15 years, I'm well versed in, I think, the pros and the cons of the tools of economic development incentives. And I think used well, they advance very strategic and important goals for that community. Some communities do need to invest more heavily than others in incentives, right? Some communities give you the industrial park, and North Carolina, I always like to say, is not where you go for that kind of package, right? Like North Carolina has invested for generations in a workforce that is more highly educated, better trained than most of our peers in the Southeast. And that's our leading incentive. But they do exist to help achieve certain goals, to attract the right caliber of job, the right wage of job, the right corporate player that shares your values in the community.
Yeah. So what's been unique about the way I've seen you do economic development, really, let's talk about site selection for a moment, because that is the stereotypical cliche where they call that the elephant hunting, right?
Yeah.
In site selection, that's where that race to the bottom idea comes from. And I want to look at Pratt Whitney as a use case of how can that be a value add to the community. So if you could, like the list of what you could classify as incentives and how many partners come to the table to make that factory work here is so impressive. And actually, it's not incentives for them as much as it is benefits for our community.
Yeah.
So like one I'll pick on is the bridge.
Yeah.
Right. We hear about this Golden Leaf Bridge, right? And people think initially it's like, oh, I'll let you talk about it, but what I want to get to is a bridge had to be built across the French Broad River. It's 5 lanes. And what it actually does is going to offset a huge amount of traffic for I-26.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes this huge, like, it's not just a private road and a private bridge. It becomes a huge connector. So what could be seen as an incentive is actually a benefit Can you talk about maybe that and some other aspects, unique aspects, and I'll tee one more up for you, a new AB Tech campus.
Yeah. Well, so Jay Walker and I were just on I-26, and I can tell you, I can't wait until that bridge and that exit are completed. Yeah, so 2 building blocks for growing your economy: talented people, and as boring as it is to say, you need dirt. Right. You need dirt where you can build a manufacturing facility. You need dirt where you can build an office building. That house takes all kinds of shapes, right? From downtown Asheville to an industrial park. But you need both. And that bridge opened up the next generation of economic opportunities for this region. I mean, literally, we will be working and focusing on that acreage for decades. And the good news is we will be working with a developer that's very particular, that has very high standards about the wages, the cleanliness of the industry, the caliber of the corporate citizens that will be attracted into that park. But you have to have infrastructure to make to raise the wages, essentially, of Buncombe County. Those sites don't exist today. We're not Charlotte, where you can draw a concentric circle around town, look at all the flat land, and go build the next generation of neighborhoods and employers.
Okay, so leaning on that Pratt Whitney thought, here's what somebody said to me in a conversation. I said something like, "Do you really know it's being built in the Pratt Whitney factory?" And they said, "I'm sure nothing good." So, Clark, if you could tell all the ship heads at home, what's really being built at Pratt Whitney?
All right, I'm going to geek out a little bit for you here.
Okay, please do.
And my preface is, I am not an engineer. Y'all know well, I'm a French major.
And you were not in aerospace engineering dynamics, right?
Pratt & Whitney is going to be building advanced turbine airfoils, right? These go in the hottest, fastest part of the jet engine, and through the technology of a new engine platform they call the GTF, the geared turbofan, this product line will save 16% in jet fuel, 50% in noxious emissions of air travel, and 90% in the noise pollution related.
That's crazy.
To jet travel. Just this new engine platform, that, by the way, has backlogs now out for practically a generation. And airfoils are essentially the printer cartridges of the industry, right? They're on the new engine, but then through continuous maintenance, which we're all very happy to have, that's the replacement part of the jet engine. So you make not only the new engine, but then you have a continuous demand for maintenance and repair operations. So it is a technology that is greening air travel for all of us, and
these are for passenger commercial jets. Jets you and I fly out of Asheville Airport can have these airfoils.
80% of the parts coming out of this facility are going to feed commercial air travel. So when you fly home to see mom and dad in Miami, you're going to be leaving a lighter footprint on the planet. Thank you, Jeffrey.
So it's green tech. It's clean tech.
And I'll add one more thing is hugely exciting to see that kind of technology, to be the home for that kind of technology. It's also hugely exciting to see an employer come into this community that shares our community ethos around workplace empowerment, investing in our people, investing in education. They pay up front 2, 4, 6-year degrees. They were recognized by the Human Rights Campaign as a best place to work, scoring 100% on the Human Rights the Workplace Equity Index. I mean, these are the practices we want in our community. These are the people I want my son to go to work for one day, right? So it's
totally,
it's a generational opportunity for us.
So that one more, this brought to mind one more thing I've heard someone say was, "Oh, Pratt Whitney." We just talked about how many great sustainable clean tech, green tech, and we even touch on the advanced manufacturing industry 4.0. This is going to become a global center for Pratt Whitney. That we're using to bring executives in to showcase the future of manufacturing.
Right.
So all these it's just literally out of the future. Someone said to me, it's on the river. It's going to pollute the river.
Interesting. So what we see happening there is I think the company's committed to a LEED silver development, which is exhibiting best practices, not just in the construction process, which means minimal waste, but long-term energy use and connectivity through multimodal transportation to the rest of the community, right? So LEED certification is a huge investment. It's more than a box that you check, but it's a commitment to putting money where your mouth is in terms of a sustainable footprint on the planet. The other thing I would highlight is a major goal of this community has been riverfront redevelopment for decades. Two shining examples, New Belgium Brewing and Sierra Nevada Brewing.
Totally.
Riverfront manufacturing at its finest. Great caretakers of the river. So you can develop in nature, you can develop near waterways with great care. And believe me, you don't without significant planning and permitting to do it the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. For folks at home, or wherever you're listening to this, if you can find a before and after of the New Belgium site, it was like a wasteland and a junkyard, and it was barren, and it was and now it's lush and green and just gorgeous.
Even better, it was an unregistered junkyard.
Oh my gosh.
They found all kinds of fun things. Yeah.
On this, one of the world's oldest river beds. It's crazy. Anyway. All right. The last question or last quote I'm going to say to you today, Clark, is companies are lining up to come here.
Were it only so.
Yes. What is your process like for recruitment or filtering, or how do you select or bring companies to town?
Listen, I'll lead off by saying I think our future is really bright. I think the state of North Carolina is having a moment. I think Asheville is having a moment. It's clearly part of this conversation. But I think what we have done effectively in this community over the past 15 years for sure is we've learned how to fish in the right ponds, right? Like we know we are not a good fit for, frankly, most of the projects that are being shipped or shopped around in the site selection circles that we frequent. So we walk away or don't pursue the vast majority of leads because we don't have the right land, or it's not the right industry, or there's most often because it's not the right wage level for what we aspire to accomplish through economic development in Buncombe County. But we've learned to focus in on industries that are high growth and innovating. And by innovating, I mean they are constantly reinvesting in technologies that will make them reinvest in their facilities and, just as importantly, reinvest in their people through new training and education. That's what innovation means to me. And that's the industry we want here because they're stickier and they're going to have a much better place to work, right? And I think smaller footprint manufacturing, frankly, is where we've learned to be successful. GE has invested nearly $250 million on essentially an 11-acre site in their industrial park. Pratt is investing $650 million on a 100-acre site. In the scheme of things, that's the largest industrial site in Buncombe County and one of the smallest in all of the state of North Carolina. So we really specialize in 5, 10, and 20-acre hits. And so our challenge and our goal is to get the best wages, the most responsible employer, and the lightest use footprint, right? As much investment as we can into that acre of land.
To the highest and best use of the
highest
land.
And best use is what it's all about.
Yeah. So it's not like we're taking anything that comes in the door. It's very picky. It's actually quite a. Oh, I should one more is that this is all done in secret. There's no transparency around economic development. Last thing I'll hit you with.
Yeah. So I think I've reported to 8 board chairs, led 150 open board meetings, reported in public to probably 4 or 5 county chairmen, 2 mayors. Yeah, it's no secret that this community for 30 years has been focused on growing the economy through the best practices of economic development. The parts that do appropriately happen behind closed doors, before open doors, are the same kind of conversations you may have to protect land values, so there's not a rush on land, or often to protect jobs, right? If you know that companies are looking for jobs, or if a publicly held company is looking to make $100 million investment, then you're getting into like very highly regulated communications, right? So confidentiality serves this place, but I can tell you every time the city or the county invests in a project, they demonstrate return on investment, how they're going to measure, what they're going to measure, and not just the hard returns, but the soft returns, right? They're going to be participating as an inclusive hiring partner. They are going to be putting a solar array on the roof. And then increasingly, Buncombe County's gotten really sophisticated about looking and measuring those community benefits that come along with great jobs and wages.
So I've been part of less than a handful of these like intro conversations where someone is maybe coming out of our program, or someone in like the venture Asheville world is like, hey, I think I'm ready for the next step in economic development. And the first meeting, I've heard you say it, our colleagues say it, the first thing to say to them is, it's a warning. It's like, this is a very public process.
Yeah.
Like, are you ready to be like, like when you go through diligence with your investment group, your angel group, that's still super private. Like this is, you're going to be bared for all to see. And you have to publicly, prostrate yourself in front of the commission and ask for an incentive or a package or something. It's the first thing we tell people. This is a super public. This isn't like, all right, let's meet at the speakeasy later and iron out the details and behind closed doors. Super public.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and I think very appropriately,
yeah,
transparent, right? Like when you're dealing with taxpayer money, you want to be able to very confidently say, this is the return to the taxpayer. And that's really why I'm especially proud of working in Buncombe County.
Final question, then we'll get more. What was transition to part 2? Fact or fiction, the best part of your job as the executive director of the Economic Development Coalition for Asheville-Buncombe County is managing me.
I'm sorry, who am I on the phone with again?
This is Jeffrey Kaplan. I can wave to you from my door.
Hands down, Jeff.
Hands down.
Hands down.
All right, next question. No, let's dig in a little bit there, because it is a surprise for people to hear that we're on the same team when they think about, again, the optics of, economic development. It's stodgy old elephant hunting. Like, no, it's also like building an angel investment group and having demo days and building an incubator for startups. Can you talk about like the evolution of the economic development strategy and the 5x5 and where we fit in, if you could, concisely, and shorten out without getting too into your engineering background?
Yeah, you specifically and Venture Asheville at large are such an exciting part of what we do in economic development. It's why we are one of only 60 accredited economic development organizations in all of North America. It's because we not only adhere to best practices, but we are innovating and looking at new ways to make impact. And for us, I think it was 8 years ago, we knew we had to have a grow your own strategy. We had to think very differently about encouraging entrepreneurship and growing the next generation of Asheville headquartered businesses. And so you see a very well-rounded strategy of growing our own and cultivating and wrapping the right world-class mentorship and funding around those most promising startups. And to me, that is just as exciting. Sitting in on your founders meetings, your wants and needs meetings, is just as exciting to me as the phone calls that come that may be a precursor to a new $50 million plant inquiry, or it's that balance that we strive to have more of in Western North Carolina. An economy in balance means there's a greater diversity of economic opportunities and upward mobility available to not just those of us that are proud to call the place home, but the next generation.
So if you go to a baseball game, you're familiar with the sport of baseball, I believe.
I've heard a thing or two about it.
There is a ceremonial first pitch. right? Where you bring someone well-known up to pitch. We do a ceremonial last question, and we bring the most notable person I can think of, our producer, Jay Walker. Jay Walker,
bracing myself,
always gets the last question at this podcast and Talking Ship. Jay Walker.
Yeah, I want to know.
If you don't have one, I have another question for Clark. if you need a minute, think of one.
No.
Okay.
Well, since we're talking truths and myths, I want to know, is Clark responsible? Are you personally responsible for the traffic on I-26?
Can I share the blame with my good friends at the NCDOT? Listen, change is hard. Growth is hard. I do, envision what 26 will look like in a few years down the road, and it gets me really happy. But yeah, it's not fun to navigate at the moment. I will say I appreciate both of you, because I think keeping the subject of economic development is so important to keep up with this growth that we're experiencing as a region. If we're not investing and thinking strategically about economic opportunity to keep up with in-migration or population growth, then we're falling behind. So I appreciate all that you two do on this team.
Thanks so much. Speaking of our team, I guess all of our boss, the big boss, Kit Kramer, president, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce appoints staff to the EDC. Said to me at our last EDC board meeting, Jeff, take it easy on the caffeine. Do you think I'm drinking too much coffee here?
I think caffeine's part of the magic.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think without caffeine, I don't think I could keep up. Having, 2 little kids, long hours.
Celsius is pretty popular amongst the college kids right now. You might think about.
I haven't seen that.
Breaking it up. It's an energy. It's an energy drink.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, Clark is air quoting drink.
Yeah.
Not energy, but drink. Yeah. Beverage. Clark, do you have any questions for Jay Walker or myself? You can throw them back this way.
Why did it take 3 seasons for me to get this microphone in front of me? This has been a blast.
Geez.
I've never seen Jeff stammer before.
Yes, and it took 3 seasons because we got to find our footing. There is a comic named Howard Kramer. He has a podcast as well. He's got a few, I think. But he has this theory that the best episode of any TV series is always season 3, episode 1. It's like it takes that long for shows like get into their groove and for viewers to know the characters enough to really get deep into jokes. And there's always some kind of pinch point leading into the 3rd season, and it's a big payoff in that episode. So I think that's why it took us a while to figure out who we are, what we do. The banter between Jay Walker and I, gets more electric every week. So I think
I'm an introvert. It takes time.
And I'm here to tell you, it's not just for the microphones. This is life in the office.
Yeah,
it is.
I think that's
like we said, toxic. So.
Well, I think that's all we got for today. If you're listening and have more questions about myths or facts about economic development, we can do this again, Clark. I'm happy to collect quotes and hear how you explain what the data and reality behind the optics is anytime. I'm sure you are too.
I'm right across the office, Jeff. Let me know.
That's right. Thank you so much for talking ship with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And for those of you at home, we'll see you at the next episode.